You know, my dear, sometimes the past doesn't knock. It sneaks back quietly, hidden in dust, tucked in corners you stopped looking at years ago. It was a cold November morning when it happened. The kind where your bones ache a little more than usual, and the sunlight barely touches the floor. I was cleaning my attic, something I hadn't done in years. My granddaughter Lily had asked me to look for her mother's old photo albums. She said she wanted to make a family scrapbook. A family scrapbook. Funny, isn't it? I'd spent decades trying to forget parts of this family. So there I was, sitting on the wooden floor, surrounded by old boxes that smelled like time itself. Yellowed letters, torn dresses, a few pictures of my late husband smiling that same careless smile that used to drive me mad. And then, I saw it. A small brown box, wrapped in a faded red ribbon. The moment my eyes landed on it, something deep inside me froze. My heart whispered, "Don't open it, Margaret." But my trembling hands didn't listen. When I pulled the ribbon, it fell apart like old lace. Inside there was a tiny blue diary. Cracked leather cover, edges worn, but my name was written in neat cursive on the corner. Margaret, 1958. I hadn't seen that number in decades. That was the year my world changed. The year I made the choice that shaped the rest of my life. I ran my fingers over the cover, and for a second, I wasn't an old woman anymore. I was 21 again. Barefoot in my small apartment, hair in curls, with a heart that believed love could fix anything. I opened the diary. And the very first line. Oh dear, it hit me like thunder. Today, I told James the first was pregnant. My breath caught in my throat. I could almost hear the rain tapping on that old window again, smell the coffee burning on the stove, feel the way my heart raced when I saw him. James, the man who promised me the world and vanished before the dawn came. I turned the pages slowly, each one a piece of my heart. The words danced before my eyes. Joy, fear, heartbreak, hope, all scribbled by a younger me who still thought life was fair. I don't know how long I sat there, my wrinkled fingers trembling over ink that had faded but never disappeared. You know, people think time heals. But sometimes it just hides the pain under layers of dust until one day something or someone uncovers it again. I read page after page, and memories came rushing back like a storm I couldn't stop. The night I stood outside his house, drenched in the rain, waiting for him to open the door. The letter I wrote and never sent. The day my father told me I had brought shame to the family. And the day I gave up my baby. I gave up my first child. I never told anyone that. Not my husband, not my children. Not even Lily, my sweet Lily. That diary was the only witness to my truth. The words blurred as my tears fell on the pages. The past had found me again, and it wasn't letting go. I closed the diary and held it against my chest. My heart was pounding, my breathing shaky, as if my younger self was still alive inside me, screaming to be heard. I whispered into the silence. Why now? After all these years? And then something strange happened. A folded paper slipped out from the back of the diary. Small, yellow, brittle. I picked it up carefully, and when I unfolded it, my hands began to shake even harder. It was a letter, addressed to me, from James. Before I tell you what was written in that letter, tell me in the comments. What would you do if you found an old diary that revealed the biggest secret of your life? Would you read it all? Or close it before it broke your heart again? I stared at that letter for what felt like forever. My mind was spinning. How did I never see this before? Had it always been inside the diary? Was it hidden by someone else? The edges were fragile, but the ink was still dark enough to read. The handwriting. Oh, I'd know it anywhere. That confident, slanted writing that used to make my heart skip a beat. My dearest Margaret, began. If you're reading this, I suppose you've finally found what I couldn't say back then. My eyes blurred with tears. I could barely keep reading. He wrote about the night he left, how he was scared, not ready to be a father, and how he thought leaving me was the only way to protect me from his failures. But then the next words. I came back for you. You weren't there. Your father told me never to see you again. I searched for you but I couldn't find you. I never stopped loving you. My heart shattered. All these years, I thought he'd abandoned me. I lived my whole life believing I wasn't enough. But maybe it wasn't like that at all. I clutched the letter and whispered through my tears, James! Oh, James! Outside, the wind howled against the windows, as if time itself was crying with me. And for the first time in decades I let myself weep, not as an old woman, but as the young girl I once was, whose story was never finished. I don't know how long I stayed in that attic, lost in the echoes of my own past. But one thing was clear, that diary had opened a door I couldn't close again. The secrets I had buried were alive, breathing through every page. And deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. Because one page near the end of the diary had something written in shaky ink, something I didn't remember writing. It said, If I ever find you again, James, I'll tell you the truth about our child. My blood ran cold. Our child. Was he still out there? I didn't sleep that night. How could I? That diary sat on my nightstand, glowing in the dim light like it was alive. Every time I closed my eyes I saw that one line again. If I ever find you again, James, I'll tell you the truth about our child. Our child. Those two words kept echoing inside my head until they hurt. When morning came I made a pot of coffee, but my hands were shaking so much that I spilled half of it on the counter. I sat down, staring at the steam curling up into the cold morning air. And then I said out loud, No more hiding, Margaret. It's time. I hadn't spoken that name, my own name, to myself in years. It sounded strange, like calling out to a ghost. I took the diary and the letter, tucked them into my purse, and decided to visit someone who might still remember. Someone from that time. There weren't many left. Old Mrs. Henderson lived 2 streets over. She had been my neighbor back in 1958, before I left the town in shame. Everyone knew my story then, but no one dared to speak of it. When she opened the door, her face lit up. Good heavens, Margaret. Is that really you? I nodded, tears forming instantly. It's me, Rosie. After all these years. Her house smelled like cinnamon and old books. We sat at her kitchen table, and I showed her the diary. When she saw the name James on one of the pages, she froze. Oh, honey, she whispered. I remember him. You loved that boy more than your own breath. I smiled sadly. Yes, and I thought he abandoned me. But he didn't, Rosie. He tried to find me. Her wrinkled hand covered mine. And the baby, Margaret. What happened to the baby? I swallowed hard. My father arranged everything. I wasn't allowed to keep him. He said a woman like me, unmarried, disgraced, could never raise a child. They told me it was for the best. I never even saw his face. Rosie's eyes filled with tears. Do you know where they took him? I shook my head. No. But I'm going to find out. She looked at me with a kind of fear, the kind you have for someone about to reopen old wounds. After all this time. It's been more than 60 years. I took a deep breath. I've lived my whole life pretending the past was buried. But it wasn't. It's right here, Rosie. I tapped my heart. And until I find him, it'll never rest. That afternoon I went to the town hall, the same place where my father had once worked as an accountant. The smell of polished wood and old paper hit me the moment I stepped inside. Some things never change. At the records desk, a young woman smiled politely. How can I help you, ma'am? I slid the diary forward, opened to a page dated July 2nd, 1958. I'm looking for birth adoption records from that year, I said quietly. For a boy born in this town. She frowned. I'm afraid those records are sealed, ma'am. Especially ones that old. Please, I whispered. It's my child. Something in my voice must have touched her. She hesitated, then said softly, Wait here a moment. When she returned, she handed me a slip of paper. I can't give you everything. But I can tell you there was an adoption that matches your timeline. The file was transferred to St. Matthew's Home for Children, 2 counties over. My breath caught. St. Matthew's. That was the same orphanage where my church used to donate clothes. Maybe it wasn't too late. That night, I sat in my chair staring at the fireplace. The flames danced the way they did when I was young. Wild, alive, unpredictable. I whispered, "James, if you're watching somehow, I'm doing this for us." The next morning I packed a small bag and left before dawn. Lily called, asking where I was going, but I didn't tell her. How could I? She'd think her grandmother had lost her mind chasing ghosts. The drive took 3 hours. The roads were quiet, lined with trees that seemed to lean in and listen to my every thought. When I reached the old stone building with its faded sign, St. Matthew's Home for Children, I had to sit in the car for a while, steadying my breathing. Inside, the hall smelled of dust and lemon polish. Kind-looking nun greeted me. "Can I help you, dear?" I nodded slowly. "I'm looking for information. About a baby boy adopted in 1958. Her eyes softened with compassion. "So many souls passed through these walls," she said. "But I can check the archives." As she disappeared down the hallway, I wandered toward the chapel. Light filtered through the stained glass, coloring the air in blues and reds. I sat down on the wooden pew, clutching the diary. "Please," I whispered to the empty church, "just give me one sign, one clue." After what felt like an eternity, the nun returned, holding a thin, worn folder. "We don't have much left from that time," she said. "But there was a boy, yes. Born July 1958. His mother's name wasn't listed, but he was adopted by a family named Harris." My heart thudded so loudly I could barely hear her next words. "They lived in Chicago for some years. After that, we lost track." Chicago. That was where my daughter, Lily's mother, had moved before she passed away. Could it be that close? The nun touched my shoulder gently. "Are you all right, dear?" I smiled through tears. Yes, I think I'm more alive than I've been in years." As I stepped back into the sunlight, I looked up at the sky. The clouds were drifting apart, letting the sun peek through, like the heavens themselves were lifting the weight off my chest. But deep down, I knew the journey wasn't over. Finding a name wasn't enough. I needed to see him, to know who he became. I drove back home with a heart full of questions. I didn't realize my hands were trembling until I parked in front of my house and saw Lily waiting on the porch. She looked worried. "Grandma, where have you been? I've been calling you all day." I froze, the diary still clutched in my hand. Should I tell her? Should I finally let someone else carry this truth? She stepped closer, her eyes soft but firm. "Grandma, what's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost." I smiled sadly. "In a way I have, sweetheart." She frowned. "Is this about the box you found in the attic?" I nodded. "Then tell me," she said gently. "What was inside?" I hesitated, my throat tightening. After a lifetime of silence, I whispered, "The truth, Lily. The truth I buried before you were even born." That night, the house was wrapped in silence, the kind of silence that feels heavy, almost sacred. The clock ticked softly, and the firelight painted slow-moving shadows across the living room. Lily sat across from me on the couch, her eyes wide and waiting. She looked so much like her mother at that age. Curious, kind, but strong-willed. I'd kept my story hidden for 67 years, and now, looking at her, I knew it was time. I took a deep breath and held the diary on my lap. "Lily, what I'm about to tell you, no one else knows. Not your mother, not your grandfather. It's something I carried alone, and it nearly broke me." She reached out and took my hand gently. "It's okay, Grandma. You can tell me anything." I smiled weakly. "That's what I used to believe too, sweetheart. But sometimes the truth is so heavy, you're afraid it'll crush the people you love." I opened the diary to the first page and handed it to her. This was mine. From 1958. I was 21, young, wild, and foolishly in love. She looked down at the faded ink, reading the first few lines. When she reached, "I told James the first was pregnant," her eyes shot up to mine. "Grandma." He nodded. Yes. I was pregnant before I married your grandfather. Her mouth fell open slightly. But, what happened? You never. I didn't keep the baby, I interrupted softly. My voice trembled. My father made me give him away. He said he was protecting me. But the truth is, he was protecting himself. His pride, his reputation. I saw Lily's eyes fill with tears, but she didn't say a word. She just squeezed my hand tighter. I thought the baby's father, James, had abandoned me, I continued. But yesterday, I found a letter hidden inside this diary. He didn't leave me. He came back. My father lied to both of us. Lily's jaw tightened. He lied about something that important. Yes, darling, I whispered. And because of that lie, I lost everything. The man I loved and the child I never got to hold. The room fell quiet. Only the fire crackled, like it was whispering to fill the silence. After a long pause, Lily asked, "Do you know what happened to the baby?" I nodded slowly. I found out he was adopted by a family named Harris. They moved to Chicago. That's where your mother lived before she passed away. Her eyes widened. Chicago. Grandma, what if? I've been thinking the same thing, I said quickly. What if he was closer than I ever imagined? Lily got up and began pacing the room. We have to find him. If he's still alive, you deserve to meet him. He deserves to know. My heart swelled at her words. Oh, Lily, you remind me so much of your grandfather. Stubborn and brave. She smiled faintly. And you, Grandma. You're stronger than anyone I know. I felt my eyes sting with tears. No, sweetheart. I was just scared for too long. She sat down beside me again. Then let's not waste another second. We'll find him. Together. Her determination gave me hope I hadn't felt in decades. She pulled out her laptop and began searching for Harris Family, Chicago, 1958 adoption. I watched her fingers fly across the keys, the glow of the screen reflecting in her eyes. After a few minutes, she gasped. Grandma, look at this. There's a David Harris, age 67, who was adopted in 1958 from St. Matthew's Home for Children. He's a retired architect now. Lives in Illinois. My heart nearly stopped. David, I whispered. That could be him. Lily looked at me with tears in her eyes. Do you want to reach out? I stared at the computer screen. My whole body felt heavy. I don't know, I said softly. What if he hates me? What if he thinks I didn't want him? She took my face in her hands. Then you'll tell him the truth. And if he has even half of your heart, Grandma, he'll understand. Her words hit something deep inside me. I realized I'd lived most of my life chained by guilt. Guilt that didn't even belong to me. Maybe it was time to let that go. Lily drafted a simple message on Facebook. Hello, David. I know this might sound strange, but I believe I might have known your birth parents. I'd love to talk if you're open to it. Lily and Margaret. I read it over twice. Should we really send it? She smiled. Sometimes you have to open the door, Grandma, even if you're scared of what's on the other side. I nodded slowly. All right, send it. The message whooshed into cyberspace, and suddenly my heart felt both lighter and heavier at the same time. Hours passed. The fire burned low. I dozed off in my chair, the diary still resting on my lap. When I woke up, the room was dim, and Lily was staring at the laptop with her hands covering her mouth. Lily, what is it? She turned to me, eyes wide, trembling. He replied. My chest tightened. What did he say? She read softly, her voice shaking. Hello, Lily and Margaret. I was told my birth mother's name was Margaret, but I never knew more than that. I've wondered about her all my life. This is real. I want to know everything. I pressed my trembling hand to my lips. Tears flooded my eyes. Oh my God, I whispered. He's alive. He wants to know. Lily started crying too, laughing and sobbing at once. Grandma, this is it. You found him. Could barely breathe. The world around me blurred. All I could feel was the rush of 67 years collapsing into one single, impossible moment. But then I froze. Because in that same message, at the very bottom, he had added one more line. A line that made my heart stop. Funny thing though, I think I might have met you before, Margaret. Years ago. You looked at me like you'd seen a ghost. I stared at the screen, trembling. When? Where? And then, slowly, it hit me. The charity gala, 20 years ago. The one where I'd met a kind architect named David Harris who'd donated a library wing in honor of his late adoptive mother. I remembered his gentle smile. His brown eyes. And I remembered the strange ache in my heart that day. The one I couldn't explain. I whispered almost to myself, I've already met my son. The next morning I woke up before the sun. My body was old, but my heart felt young again. Restless, anxious, alive. 67 years. And this was the day I might finally meet the boy I'd lost. Lily made breakfast, though neither of us ate much. She kept checking her phone, waiting for David's next message. Then, just as I was pouring my tea, my phone buzzed. Lily grabbed it first, her hands shaking. Grandma, it's him. I could barely whisper. What does he say? She read slowly, her voice breaking. Margaret, I live in Springfield now. If you're ready, I'd love to meet you. There's a park by the river where I walk every morning. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., I'll be there. I closed my eyes, and for a moment I couldn't speak. Tears welled up again, hot and unstoppable. Tomorrow, I whispered. Tomorrow I meet my son. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in my rocking chair by the window, holding the old diary in my lap. The moonlight fell across the pages, and I traced the faded ink with my fingers, the words of a girl who had lost everything, never knowing that one day she'd get a second chance. I whispered into the night. James, if you can hear me. Found him. Boy. I found him. The next morning I dressed carefully. Not fancy, just neatly. A pale blue blouse, a pearl necklace, and the same wool coat I'd worn to my wedding. My hands trembled as I pinned the little silver brooch James had given me when we were young. Lily drove. The road was quiet, lined with trees whose autumn leaves shimmered like gold in the morning sun. My heart thudded louder with every mile. I kept thinking, what will he see when he looks at me? An old woman with shaky hands. Or the mother he'd never known. When we arrived, the park was calm, the river glinting under the sunlight, ducks gliding across the water. And then I saw him. He was standing near a bench, tall and silver-haired, with kind eyes and a presence that felt strangely familiar, like I'd known him forever. My breath caught. My steps faltered. That's him, I whispered. Lily smiled through tears. Go, Grandma, go. I walked slowly, each step heavier than the last, until he turned and saw me. He froze, and I'll never forget the way his expression changed. Recognition, and then tears. He whispered my name like it was a prayer. Margaret. I nodded, my voice trembling. David. He stepped closer, his eyes glistening. It's really you. And before I could say another word, he opened his arms. I fell into them, and for the first time in 67 years, I held my child. We didn't speak for a long time. We just cried. Two souls who'd spent lifetimes searching for what had always been missing. When he finally pulled back, he looked at me and said softly, I always wondered why I never looked like anyone in my family. I used to dream that somewhere out there, my mother was thinking about me. I smiled through tears. Oh, my darling boy, I thought about you every single day. Every single day. He cupped my face with his hands, studying my features as if memorizing them. You have my eyes, I said, laughing through my tears. He laughed too, wiping his cheeks. Guess I got something from you after all. We sat on the bench together. I told him everything about his father, about my parents, about the lies and the guilt. He listened quietly, sometimes nodding, sometimes reaching over to squeeze my hand. When I finished, I whispered, I understand if you hate me. If you never want to see me again, I'll understand that too. He shook his head immediately. Hate you? No, Margaret. You were a girl trapped by a world that didn't forgive. You did what you had to. You loved me the only way you could, by letting me live. His words broke me. I sobbed into his shoulder. You're too kind, David. He smiled gently. No, just lucky. Lucky that fate brought me back to you. We sat there for hours watching the river flow, time passing quietly, like the world was giving us back the years we'd lost. Lily joined us later, bringing sandwiches and that bright smile that reminded me life keeps going. When I introduced them, she burst into tears. David, she said, her voice cracking, I guess that makes me your niece. He chuckled softly. Guess so. And then, for the first time, our family felt whole. We spent the rest of the day together, sharing stories, memories, and tears. He told me about his adoptive parents, how they loved him dearly, how he became an architect because his adoptive mother believed in his drawings. She passed away last year, he said softly. I wish she could have met you. He nodded. Maybe she has, in some way. Maybe she's smiling down on us right now. As the sun began to set, we stood by the water, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. The wind played with my hair, and I felt James's presence. Warm, forgiving, proud. David turned to me and said, You know, when I was a kid, I used to write letters to the mother I'd never met. I'd tell her about school, about my dreams, about the stars. I'd leave them under my pillow. I smiled through tears. Then maybe I was hearing you, sweetheart. Because some nights, I'd wake up with this strange warmth in my heart, as if someone out there was whispering to me. He nodded. Maybe love never really gets lost. It just finds another way to reach us. That line. It'll stay with me forever. We hugged again, tighter this time. When I held him, I didn't feel 88 years old. I felt young again, like the girl who once believed in miracles. And for the first time in my long, complicated life, I realized something. The past isn't there to punish us. It's there to remind us that love, no matter how buried, never truly dies. Later that night back home, I placed the diary back inside its box, not to hide it, but to honor it. I whispered, Thank you, 1958. You gave me pain, but you also gave me my son. Lily walked in quietly and sat beside me. So, Grandma, what will you do now? I smiled softly. Now. I'll live, dear. For the first time, I'll really live. She took my hand. Can I read your diary someday? He nodded. Yes, sweetheart. Because our stories aren't meant to be hidden. They're meant to be told. I looked out the window at the moon, feeling peace wash over me. And as I sat there, I thought of all the women who'd ever lost something. Love, hope, a child, or themselves. If only they knew. Sometimes, even after a lifetime of silence, love still finds its way home.